Hello, Internet. Okay, strap in. It's gonna be a long one, because it's me. I tried to film this before and it came out to like 19 minutes. And I don't have a problem with that, but you might have a problem with that. So I'm gonna try to be more brief than ever before. I'm trying to redo my beginner video, essentially. I think I took it down. Because I've changed how I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. So this is the new attempt at getting new folks up to speed. So I want to show the types of motor patterns that a lot of beginners get stuck in that aren't productive. And I'm going to give you something better. So we're going to look at 5 relatively new players and then 2 a little more advanced players that are still struggling with this, well, phase 2 issues. So, anyways, this will serve as a new beginner video. Let's jump in. So I'm going to go kind of fast because we want kind of broad strokes here. I want this to be digestible to new folks. So this is our first player, and we're just looking at feet. So check out the feet. They are feet. They are pointed in directions. And I decided I'm not going to use anyone's name because I don't want to be putting people's names all over the internet. But I wanted to thank all of these players very much. They're all folks from the Disc Golf Form Check page, and they all agreed to have their clip on the interwebs. So thank you to you all. Hopefully this is helpful. I will try to get in touch with you somewhat discreetly and let you know that you are in a video. Here's our next player. Note the feet. Toes pointed opposite directions. Lots of weight loaded into the rear quad. Same thing. Feet pointed out. A little bit better angle on the front. Probably a little bit more productive loading of the rear leg in this case, but toe still back. That's the third one. Here's the fourth one. Again, aggressive load up on the balls of the feet. That's good, kind of. But toes facing opposite directions. Fifth player, toes facing opposite directions. Lots of weight on the ball of the front foot. And then flash forward to our 2 more advanced players. This is Jason, my intranet friend. And his front leg looks pretty darn good. But his short leg, long leg triangle is backwards. His long leg is in the back rather than in the front, meaning that his hips are closer to his front foot than his back foot. So his leg is too far south. Really good job tucking his off arm, better than me. And so the front leg looks good, but some things still need to change so that the brace can work. And this is another more advanced player, and again we see a more in line with what we want front leg. And like this still looks okay, but this leg is still too far directly south behind the player. But otherwise we got a lot of good things going on in these last 2 gentlemen. So let's see, what is my point with this video? My point is, 1, don't run down the tee pad so fast. Actually, if you want to improve as quickly as you can, you should probably start with 1 legs and then standstills, and then maybe worry about a walk up, but probably not, honestly. So less speed, more time focusing on 1 leg drills. Tied into that, don't let your X step be too long. When your X step is too long, it turns your toes backwards. When your toes get turned backwards, nothing works. Yeah, and then from there, we're into the 1 leg drills. So those are the big takeaways. So the feet end up in a not productive position. So how do the feet get there? Let's play the whole thing. So here's the next step that's too long, that turns the toes too far back. The whole body gets turned back. And then there's an interesting thing that happens here that happens to a lot of us. So here the heel is clearly forward. And then the toe sets down and the leg begins to rotate forward. So the heel is actually moving away from the target. Heel moving away from the target, and now it's grounded. And then the front leg will continue to rotate. So the front leg is included in the axis of rotation. What we actually want is the front leg to touch toe to heel for now, the heel to land closer to the target, and the leg to then stop rotating and isolate the rotation to the pelvis and above and the trailing leg. But instead here what we see, because this player has not been shown how to brace yet in a way that has made sense, we see the front leg continue to rotate along with the shoulders, right? All those clicky pauses are front leg included in axis of rotation, which is something we want to really get rid of. The leg rotates forward with the shoulders, and the front leg bends to make way for the hips to come through without putting stress on the knee. Good for safety, bad for distance. Okay, next. So how did we get to this horse stance? We had too much speed, and we had too big of an X-step. So a hopping X-step, which is fine, but it's too big, and it turns the toes too far back, and the weight all lands on that rear foot and stays there for too long. Get this heavy loading in the quad that I talked about. The quad can only push up, and we don't want to go up. We want to go down into the brace. So at this point here, we're already kind of screwed. So then we're going to, because we've rotated too far back, we're going to have to rotate too far forward. This foot is already open. Here our hips are immobile. They can't rotate quickly. There's nowhere for them to go. This leg is long. This leg is getting, is it getting shorter? No, this leg is extending. So this whole triangle is going up. And the hips are going to come up over the brace. The throw is low to compensate. And then the balance tips forward over the front foot. Very, very common motor pattern. We'll see that one again coming up next, I think. So this guy moves okay. Moves well. He moves very well. If the audio is on, you can hear the snap when the disc comes out of his fingers, which is not an important thing to strive for, but it is a very cool thing, according to me. But this gentleman has his feet pointed backwards at 45 degrees during his whole run up. So that's it's going to make it really hard to coil because you're already turned around backwards. So then the X step is turned way too far back. The weight is all the way on that foot for too long. This player happens to do a good job of getting the rear leg in here, but so this is another really common movement pattern where both knees rotate forward together. So here they're both facing back, and then they both come forward at the same time. And there's never really an instant where they're both pointed down and in, like every photo of eagle you've ever seen, ever. So what's happening here? It's the same thing. The X step is too long. And then this guy's doing a better job of planting with his foot neutral-ish. But the front knee, the front leg is still included in the axis of rotation. And when the front knee sets down, it continues to drift and rotate forward. And then that right there is another super interesting thing that's actually really, it's a less common movement pattern, but it happens in athletic folks like this that have more explosivity than they have balance in their throw yet. So this guy is pushing, he's kicking dirt around, he's pushing into his heel, he's straightening his front leg aggressively enough that it lifts him off the ground. He's actually jumping off of his brace, but he wasn't balanced. So his hips were too far towards the heel side, so when he jumped, his foot moved towards the heel side. So his hips were falling to his right, and his brace was in front of him to his left, if you can follow those words. It's a lot without pictures, but we're trying to go quick. So the issue is the rear leg. The rear leg stays in place, internally rotates, and then lifts up right in place and actually moves to the left. So the way that we stop that hop from happening is having this leg go that way instead of having the hips have to go this way after the brace. Anyways, we're getting into the weeds. Keep your X-step small is the point. So here, that looks okay. Like most people wouldn't complain about that, but while we're learning how to brace, I would encourage this player to make that X-step smaller. And I can't clicky pausey for anything today. Apologies. So that's a foot, you know. I would make that 3 inches and as controlled as possible and strictly have this foot on a 90-degree angle pointing at the camera. It seems arbitrary, but if you just slow down enough that you can actually do that, your throws are going to improve faster. A lot of people can't do it because they keep running up fast because going fast is how you throw fast. That's going fast is how you don't learn anything ever. Ask me how I know. We need to slow down and build more functional motor patterns. And that involves slowing down. So because of the, I mean, you can't even say this guy's over rotated backwards. This looks good, but the front leg started to open up already from the knee down. So we look okay. And then here, the kneecap down is going to turn to the left, boop, and open. So now this hip is not in a good position anymore. So this little move right here of turning the toe towards the target, this is what our next player is going to do it, but then our last 2 players have figured that part out. They don't have to do that anymore. So you're bringing more things into center basically in this method. So moving forward, weight comes down. That looks good, but we're just a little too, I mean, I don't even want to say we're too wide. It's just we've shifted. The front foot's fine. Never mind. Can't complain about the front foot. We could optimize it a little more for this method, but there's nothing wrong with the way this player is setting down, besides that little tweak and open. But again, look at the rear leg. It's going to lift, slow him down a little bit more. It's going to lift straight up off the ground, and then it's immediately going to come towards the camera. So that's, to me, that's a symptom of overextension off of the rear leg. Yeah, so as the weight shifts onto this foot, this leg is short and this leg is long, and you want those flipped. So more bend in the knee, more getting the foot down before the hips have gone too far forward. So watch the foot as it comes off the ground. Little bit of a scoop there. That's good. Moving towards the heel side. So this player is very, very, very close, but that motion of the rear leg towards the heel needs to be a little significantly more aggressive towards, you know, if the disc is going this way, the foot needs to go the opposite trajectory, basically. So because the shoulders are spinning forward a little bit too much, that's because the leg is not spinning behind enough. Do I have any way I can do that quickly? No. I'm going to do a stupid video with puppets. I can do it with my hands. Ready, internet? Hand shapes. This is stupid, but it will make sense. So I want to make a gingerbread person. So imagine a gingerbread person. Here is gingerbread person's head, torso, and trailing leg. Here is their front leg. A gingerbread person does not spin around their front leg. Their front leg goes into the ground, and then everything else folds closed around the front leg. That's what we want. That way you can have gingerbread person is throwing towards you. You can have all of this stuff go boop and fold under, because we're on a hyzer lean, right? It's going to go under. If you're upright, it spins around and it blows past the brace. It doesn't matter. But if you can be here and just fold under and have this front leg stay there in the ground, that's the motion we're going for. So the leg actually moves towards the target as the shoulders rotate towards the target. If you let the leg get too far behind, there's a little bit of rotation in the spine, but the leg can't do anything because it's back there. So that's the gingerbread person story. I'll do a video on that with the For Reals puppet later. But now we get to pick on Jason. Oh no, we got one more newer player. So lots of speed, very big steps. Huge X step, hopping X step touches the ground ahead of the center of gravity. So that is necessarily slowing down our movement. We're absorbing with that knee instead of floating over the top of it. So we'd rather see the point of ground contact directly below the center of gravity. So you're just pogo sticking sideways. You're not taking momentum away with this step, and you're not really adding momentum with this step. So because that foot got to the ground early but late, it's too far in front of the player rather than touching the ground under the player for the first time. Then we end up spending too much time on this leg. We end up putting too much weight in this leg. We end up loading the quad too much. And when the quad loads, the quad has to unload. And where does it unload? It unloads up. So we've got another pole vaulter here. This guy is going to go over his front leg. I can already tell it, even if I hadn't seen the video yet. Big long reach out to the brace. So I like the front leg reach being that long. This is long leg, short leg working correctly. But this leg is pointed backwards. The knee's pointed backwards, the toe's pointed backwards. So all that leg can do is push up. So as we come off the back leg extends, pushing the hips up. The front leg doesn't really have anything it can do, so it just stays there. Now we have short leg in the front, long leg in the back. That is not what we want. It's a recipe for going forward over your brace. So it goes up, so he is getting some good resistance, like our friend in the gray shirt that was going backwards at a 45-degree angle. We're getting some push out of the front leg, but it's too late, and our hips are already up. And our rear leg is too far south, too far out of position. It needs to go east so that it can make us into a gingerbread person. And good counterbalance with the rear leg to maintain balance going past the brace, but we go past the brace. So that's what happens. So my point is these 5 beginning players were selected largely at random. Sure, I have some selection bias, and I'm not going to pick the people that are throwing 500 already, but I didn't cherry pick 5 people that all have the same issues, the same 3 issues: too much speed, too big of an X step, toes turning around backwards, front toes turning around forwards, and then no brace because of those other things. So we're just going to try to correct all of those with one sequence that starts with the one leg stuff. But first, let's see what happens when you just get that front leg closed, and then we'll talk a little bit about what these guys need to figure out. And I've already worked with Jason a little bit, and he's got some of this figured out already, so this is a retrospective. I think that's how words work. So let's see, can we see his X step? We can't see the whole thing, but it's a foot. It's at least a foot of X step, and his toes are turning around backwards. And he's really settling down onto that rear heel. So this is what I would call too much time and too much weight on the rear leg. So Jason's rear leg is going to have the same problem as everyone else. It's going to be stuck too far to the south. But he's got his front leg pretty good in terms of angle. That's great. Love it. And then already we've got short leg, long leg, like we mentioned, I believe. And then right there, you can see already that the front leg is included in the axis of rotation. So Jason is not yet being a gingerbread person, excuse me. Shouldn't use slurs. Just kidding. So the front leg in axis of rotation. Yeah. So there can't, the way I define brace, there can't be a brace here because the front leg is rotating. The whole point of the brace is that the front leg doesn't rotate so that it can move the front hip towards the rear and stop the front hip, and that's what causes hip snap. So Jason's rotating the whole way through. He's barn dooring. That little bit of balance right there where, let's see what happened. He gingerbread personed a little bit in that the left shoulder, the left hip, and the left leg all internally rotated towards center, and the more so than the right leg. The right leg wasn't moving. So let's see if we can catch that instant. So it's like that there's a little frame where there's that lag like in his lumbar spine. So like this stuff is really weird to see. But you see how there's that like shockwave? So Jason has some amount of a hit. Yeah, look at his elbow. Whap. So he's got some really good fluidity in his arm. I think that's what it is. I think there's a shockwave from his arm, and that torques his torso around more. So he's generating a lot of torque, but he's not yet doing it with ground contact from the front leg, which is bracing. Sorry if you're getting sick watching this. This is what happens. I watch clips like this like hundreds of times until they make sense. So Jason has a little bit of, look at his knees now. They're both backwards, and then they both rotate forwards together. So find any pro that you like and go look at their knee timing, and it will be different than that. The front knee will have a spot where it stops rotating, right about here. And then the knee, when the toe and the heel are both down, the front leg converts to linear and the knee only goes backwards, and that drives the hip backwards. And then the rear hip comes around and folds in gingerbread person mode, and the rear leg follows suit and the rear shoulder follows suit. So the whole back side of the body just folds into the front side of the body. Okay, that's enough picking on Jason. But first, what does he need to change? So the big thing is this leg needs to not get that extended and behind. Behind meaning south on the T-pad. We don't want the rear leg south. We want the rear leg east, behind the player. So if the rear leg was on the axis in line with the spine, essentially, then we would be free to extend the front leg, move the front hip to the right, and have the extension of the rear leg help move the rear hip forward faster. But what we get instead is the long leg is left, the rear leg is left behind south on the T-pad and turns into a rudder and prevents quick hip rotation. So there the leg is moved as much as it can, and now it starts slowing down the rear hip and coming around towards the toe side. Okay, one more. Then I guess we'll just call it there, and we'll do the next video on how to fix all this. Helping tailwind. So reasonable X step, but still getting the toes pretty far backwards. Good front leg, just like Jason. Rear leg looks pretty good, but it's staying south. Potentially some shoulder collapse here, but that's not the end of the world. And then the front leg rotates through pretty quick. Oh wow, I already got you slowed down. Okay, clicky pausey. So front leg will pretty much rotate from here. Yeah. So very close, but we're still shying away from the brace because we don't trust it yet. I get it. I was there for like a year, and I'm still there. I'm still working on this stuff myself. It's a good shot of the dog. Oh, we're not in frame. Goodness. Hope not everything was like that. Take 3. So everything looks pretty decent. I'd like to see that rear leg turned in more. Front leg looks pretty good, but the knee. So I think what happens here is we haven't committed enough weight into the heel and to the heel going forward towards the target more. So the heel drops down straight away from the camera, which is the front leg going into external rotation already. Once you start that external rotation, it keeps happening. So the kneecap is pointed to the right now. It's going to turn towards us and then towards us more and then away from us. And never at any point does it actually stop for an instant to keep the front leg in gingerbread person mode so that it can do its job. So, well, let's do a quick recap. What could go wrong? Okay. So, too much speed leads to too big of a next step, too long of a next step, which turns the toes backwards, which means we probably spend too much time on this leg, which means we have to pull vault off of it, which means we go over the front. Also, when we turn this far back, we feel like we have to turn forward, and this does not work. My hips can't move here, it just hurts. If I get for me, I'm very comfortable being very far in, so I'm extreme, but most people should be able to get to at least 90 or a little bit inside, or at least a little bit inside with the front foot. So we want to get this knees in position, because here I can move my hips a lot. I can have my hips do what I want them to do. So honestly, just start with the one leg drill. Start in this position and throw here. You're learning the start of that gingerbread person thing. So the gingerbread person thing is I'm here, I'm a gingerbread person. My throw is going to consist of this and this. That's it. You know how to throw. Go do it. That's the opposite of being this gingerbread person and just throwing like that. It's too slow. You can't move this whole shape around. It doesn't work. You've got to make everything tight to your gingerbread and throw it there. So that's the model of the throw, is getting everything in that shape. So you just start there. You just do a one leg drill, focusing on keeping this still and moving everything else on a spine axis around that. It's easier to get from here to here to here. You don't want to start from here and do all this stuff. You can't learn how to do it right that way. So start from the end position. So the one leg drill is getting you used to having your rear leg on a line with your spine, and just throw there and learn that your rear leg can just stay there. Then you move into a little bit of a weight shift where you're shifting weight back onto the rear leg and then shifting into that same exact finish position. So you're just shifting into this balance pose. Then you can do the same thing with the walk up. Keep the X step tiny and keep it right toes parallel. Boom. That's it. That's all you need for a progression out of horse stance and cranking over your brace. All right, internet. Good luck. Go forth and huck.